we've got our own problems there.
Yeah, Kurt, you do.
But I want to let you know, because I'm from Burlington, it wasn't my fault.
All right.
But let's talk some policy. Governor Christie, we just had the debt ceiling deal in Washington, and a lot of people on the farther right didn't like the deal, and a lot of people on the farther left didn't seem to like the deal. And Governor DeSantis also seems to have trashed the deal. I haven't heard so much from Donald Trump yet, I don't think, about it, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts were on the debt ceiling deal. Do you think Kevin McCarthy got enough? What do you think of that deal?
Well, thank God they did it. Look, governing is about choosing, and governing is about compromising. When did compromise become such a dirty word? Look, if we don't want compromise, set up a dictatorship, put the dictator in charge, he or she will make all the decisions, and then we won't have to ever worry about compromising. We may get trampled, but we won't have to worry about compromising, thank God. Hey, look, are there things that I would have done differently? Sure. Sure, there's some things I might have done differently. But I'm not going to trash Kevin McCarthy over this. He had a responsibility. Let's remember what the debt ceiling is, everybody. It's not future spending. It's money we already spent. Are we going to pay the bills we already ran up? And I'll tell you a great Donald Trump aside on this. When I became governor of New Jersey, we had an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget. And we had pension and benefit debt of over $300 billion. And my friend Donald Trump called me, and he said, here's what you do. Don't pay it. He said, Chris, go bankrupt. I said, Donald, the law doesn't allow states to go bankrupt. He said, screw it, fight it out in the courts. Don't pay it. You're never going to be able to fix all this, so just let the debt go. That's not leadership. That's not leadership. And everybody who says they hate the debt deal, they can tell me what particular parts they don't like, but they need to tell me how they would have gotten it done. Because let me tell you what would have happened to everybody in this room, me included, if they didn't do it. The economy would have cratered. We already have a bank crisis going on. You think we have one now. Wait until you see what would happen if we defaulted on the debt. Wait till you see what would happen to our ability to trade around the world. Look at what would have happened to your 401ks and your IRAs and your college funds for your kids. It would have been a disaster. So governing is choosing. And see, I think Governor DeSantis doesn't like it because Governor DeSantis never had to compromise. When he was in the House of Representatives, he was in the Freedom Caucus, and he just said either hell yes or hell no. And as governor of Florida, he had a Republican legislature who would do whatever he wanted. So you never have to compromise. I had a Democratic legislature for 8 years. Every hour of 8 years. Every minute of 8 years. And I had to make a fundamental decision. Is on a particular issue 60% enough? Is 70% enough? Can I live with 40% this time in order to get something done and move the ball down the field? And by the way, that's how we capped property taxes at 2% in New Jersey. That had averaged 7% increase for the 10 years before I was governor. That's how we saved $150 billion on our pension and health benefits system because I compromised with the Democrats. Would I have liked to fix the whole $300 million problem? I would have. But guess what? I retired half of the problem. Is that a failure? Under that definition, it is. So look, I'm not going to be one of those guys, if I become president of the United States, who is going to go in and say, my way or the highway, it's got to be what I want every day, and if it's not, I'm going back to the Oval Office, holding my breath, and ignoring you. Now, you all know me. Doesn't mean I'm not going to fight. I'm going to fight every day until the minute I think we've reached the time where compromise is going to happen. But that's how you negotiate. Like, you know, if you went into your boss and you said, I'd like a 10% raise. And your boss said, oh, I don't really think we can do that. I can only do 2%. And you said, okay, goodbye. And you walked out. And you didn't fight. Well, you ain't going to get 2%. But if you said, well, I don't know, about 2 is just much too low. Would you maybe get to 7? And then the boss comes back and says, well, I might be able to get to 4. Man, you know what I'm seeing? Here comes 6, baby. I'm getting 6. And you have tripled what the boss originally offered you. Under the definition of some people on the left wing of the Republican or the Democratic Party and some of the people on our party, that's a loss. Not to me. So I'm going to criticize Kevin McCarthy. I wasn't in the negotiations. I can't tell whether he could have squeezed a little more out or whether he had reached the end. But what I do know is he knew that if he failed, that the American economy would fail. Yes, he did. He said we should default. And that's why I told the story. It's not news, baby. He told me to default in 2010. And when I said to him, I can't do it, it's against the law, he said, fight it in the courts. I said, we'd lose. And he'd go, oh, for God's sake, Chris, don't be stupid, just default. Now, look, that's not leadership, everybody. It's just not. And when he was just a developer at Trump Tower in New York City calling and giving me advice, who cares? He's one of thousands of people who would give me advice, and it's my job to decide. But when you put him in the chair to decide, and you know that's what he thinks, get ready. Get ready for bad things to happen. And that's what happened.